My husband passed away with a net worth of hundreds of billions but had no children. On the day of his burial, his mistress brought a bastard son. My mother-in-law was determined to open the coffin for an identification test. I tried to stop her, but I was slapped and scolded as a barren hen. I sneered and opened the coffin. Unexpectedly, my mother-in-law fainted on the spot. At my husband's funeral, a woman came in with a little boy in her arms to claim his father. Yao Yao, this is Brother Hun's son. The woman with long black straight hair had a weak voice, just like when she worked beside Wang Hun in the past. She always liked to pretend to be innocent and pitiful. Men were into this. Wang Hun ostensibly fired her, but secretly they were still in cahoots. I sneered, don't randomly claim kinship. I don't have a sister who is a mistress. The woman with long black straight hair looked at my in-laws aggrievedly. My father-in-law cleared his throat. With all the relatives and friends present, he still had to pretend to be benevolent. Yao Yao, it was Wang Hun who let you down. But after 7 years of marriage, let alone a grandson, you haven't even let us hold a granddaughter. My mother-in-law chimed in, what was Hun wrong? What was our Wang family wrong? All these years, my son has been working hard outside every day, while you sleep until you wake up naturally every day and still let the two of us old people cook and do the laundry. Which daughter-in-law is as carefree as you? The relatives and friends whispered to each other, and the voices were so loud that they were clearly meant for me to hear. It's just a hen that doesn't lay eggs and is so lazy. It's not wrong for Wang Hun to have an affair. Tsk tisk, I've always said that we shouldn't marry a wife from outside the area. She has a bad character. People can fabricate lies with just a few words. Why did I become a full-time housewife? Their family knew it best. In the 3rd year of our marriage, my in-laws had serious health problems, and I had to step back and take care of them wholeheartedly. Mother-in-law, you had a biliary fistula, and father-in-law, you had chronic renal failure. When you two were lying in bed defecating and urinating, stinking so much that your son and daughter didn't want to get close, and it was all me taking care of you, you didn't say such things. My father-in-law's face turned red. My mother-in-law was thick-skinned and shouted with her hands on her hips, he is the eldest grandson of our Wang family, and he should inherit Wang Hun's inheritance. All in all, it was for that inheritance. Their calculations were so obvious that I could almost feel them hitting my face. But I will not let you have your way. What's more, they probably selectively forgot who really built up Wang Hun's family business. What if I don't recognize it? It's not up to you. My sister-in-law's boyfriend arrived late and scolded me as if he were one of the family. According to the law, a husband's illegitimate son has the right to inherit property. It doesn't matter if you don't recognize it. The company should be given to him. These people seem to have found their backbone. My in-laws, who didn't know the law, also used the law as an excuse. Since they talked about the law, I also wanted legal evidence. Please show the paternity test between Wang Hun and the child. How can you just bring a child here randomly to divide the family property? However, Wang Hun was now burned to ashes. How could we do the test? My sister-in-law's boyfriend was complacent. I knew you would say that. I've already stopped the funeral parlor. My brother's body is still there. Oh, what a clever plan. It's kind of interesting. 2. What is a Buddha's mouth but a viper's heart? The Wang family was undoubtedly like this. When they were not yet prosperous, I was the ladder to the sky for them. When they became a little wealthy, I became the straw on the ground. When we got married, the Wang family said very nice words. Yao Yao, you will be our daughter from now on. Don't be afraid that a girl who marries far away will be bullied. In our family, you are a precious treasure. Sister-in-law, you are so kind. My brother must have accumulated good karma in his previous life. At that time, I graduated from a prestigious university, was the only daughter in my family, and my parents built their business from scratch and had some achievements in the business world. They advised me not to marry far away, but couldn't dissuade me. Fearing that I would be bullied, they gave me a dowry of 1,880,000 yuan. And they gave countless help to Wang Hun on his entrepreneurial journey later. My father patted Wang Hun heavily on the shoulder, his voice choking, "Wang Hun, you must be good to Yao Yao. If one day you don't want her anymore, return her to us. She is our heart and liver." Now, the Wang family said in front of everyone that I was a hen that didn't lay eggs and used the moral high ground to ask me to raise the mistress's child. They were thinking too beautifully, or the image I had given them was that I was too easy to bully. It's time to see the real me. Fine, then open the coffin. A group of people came to the funeral parlor. The in-laws rushed forward eagerly to lift the coffin lid. There was no respect for the dead at all. And the one lying inside wasn't their son, but glittering money. Ah! The two of them let out a shrill cry and fell to the ground, leaning against each other, their eyes rolling back. The sister-in-law questioned her parents. Seeing no answer, she walked forward and took a look. Frightened, she hid in her boyfriend's arms. Those among the relatives and friends who couldn't resist looking into the coffin either screamed loudly or vomited. The scene was in chaos. "Oh, my God, it's so horrible. Wang Hui, you and I were husband and wife. Originally, I wanted to give you face and send you away decently. But your family had to make a fuss. I've already said that Wang Hui was burned to a crisp, but you just wouldn't believe it. On the day of Wang Hui's accident, it was the 7th anniversary of our marriage. He came home early in the morning and even brought a present, a pair of earrings. He grinned sheepishly and said, 'Darling wife, don't you like earrings? Do you like this pair?' I picked up the earrings with 2 fingers and examined them carefully. Aren't these the freebies of the long black straight style necklace in the WeChat moments? When the girl with long black straight hair was still around, she deliberately added me on WeChat. There was no news until 2 years ago when she frequently showed off all kinds of luxury goods. Coincidentally, they were all the same style as mine. I threw away the earrings and said jokingly, 'This pair of earrings is a matching item of the necklace, that is, a freebie.' Wang Hui, don't tell me that you gave the girl outside the necklace and casually gave me the freebie. You're so shrewd." He used the freebie earrings to exchange for the share agreement in my hand. What a clever plan! Seeing that his intention was exposed, Wang Hui looked embarrassed and fawningly tried to sell himself by wriggling closer. I almost vomited out the wedding banquet from 7 years ago. I quickly and neatly signed my name, but there was still 10% of the contract left unsigned. But the girl with long black straight hair kept calling. He couldn't be bothered to look at the contract and left like the wind. I waved with a smile behind him. The road is slippery on rainy days. Be careful. Later, Wang Hui crashed head-on into a corner on the mountainside and was burned to a cinder. Obviously, no gene could be extracted from the cinder, so the paternity test was in vain. Several people looked very gloomy. However, the girl with long black straight hair let out a long sigh and said faintly, "Sister, do you think this is fate? I also have a share of fate here." 3. The girl with long black straight hair took out a birth certificate from her bag. Wang Hui's name was written in the father's column. The surrounding voices of discussion were like the buzzing of mosquitoes, which made my heart ache. Wang Hui, you bastard. You didn't leave me any way out. Feeling dizzy again, when thinking about this problem again, I'm not stupid. How could I have fallen into this den of thieves? Now I understand. There are always those who have been thieves for a long time, but no one can be on guard against thieves forever. Wang Hui regarded me as his prey from the very beginning. He deliberately approached me, and even the whole family was acting. I didn't discover this secret until the 5th year after marriage. At that time, I had completely withdrawn from the company, and my sister-in-law became the legal person of the company. The shares were divided into 3 parts, 30% for Wang Hui, 20% for me, 5% for my sister-in-law, and 45% for other shareholders. The situation was delicate. Wang Hui often complained that his shareholding was not enough and that he couldn't make many decisions, and he urged me to transfer my shares to him. Originally, I would have, but his family was too impatient. When my in-laws saw that I had withdrawn, they thought I was an idle person. Their words were all about how I was a useless woman who couldn't bear children. Especially when they saw me buying clothes, they seemed to be eating their own flesh, their eyes glowing red. Some people are so shameless that they eat for free and still buy clothes. What's the use of dressing up nicely on the outside? Inside, they are just straw. They are just hens that can't lay eggs. I forced myself to hold back my anger and argued with them. My family and I helped a great deal in the early days of the company's start-up. The mother-in-law spoke quickly. If it weren't for your family's wealth, our Hui wouldn't have married a hen that can't lay eggs. I'm stunned. I always thought that his parents were just dissatisfied that we had no children, but I didn't expect there was such a reason. Father-in-law pulled mother-in-law, signaling her not to say any more, but mother-in-law was very impatient. What are you afraid of? We've been married for 5 years. Her money is ours. Besides, she really can't have children. I unwillingly turned to my sister-in-law. Usually, she and I had a good relationship, but at this moment, she naturally took out my bag from my wardrobe, put on my diamond necklace, and replied impatiently, "Oh, sister-in-law, you are, after all, a graduate of a famous university. Be a bit worldly wise. See through but don't expose it, okay?" So all their kindness to me before marriage was a lie. In those years, I took care of my sister-in-law wholeheartedly, planned a way out for her, and gave up my corporate legal person status. I was such a fool. I was so angry that I had a severe stomachache. My sister-in-law shouted, "Mom, sister-in-law is so angry that she has a miscarriage." She was simply laughing at me. Mother-in-law said coldly, "If she can get pregnant, the sows in my hometown can give birth too. She really has a delicate lady-like disposition. She gets sick at the slightest provocation. They don't know that I'm having in vitro fertilization, though in vain." I held on and came to the hospital alone. Wang Hui also arrived at the hospital in a flurry. My heart eased a little. At least he was sincere to me. "Wang Hui's family member? Your wife has given birth. It's a son." Wang Hui's eyes lit up and he shouted, coming, not noticing that I was right beside him at all. My raised hand dropped, and my hanging heart was completely dead. How can bad bamboo produce good shoots? The whole family of scoundrels should go to hell together. My sister-in-law's boyfriend was triumphant. According to the terms, if the father's name is on the birth certificate, it can be a proof of paternity. "Sister-in-law, your brother's shares can also be inherited by the child." I don't like the look of this family when they get a little success. They are fawning and spineless. They deserve to be dogs. What's the hurry? Your brother has more than one child. 4. Men can have illegitimate children, so why can't women? Relatives and friends looked at me like I was a monster, their faces full of incredulity. She must be crazy. Only a man's child is legitimate, while a woman's is an illegitimate birth. Since my husband Wang Hui's illegitimate children can inherit the shares, why can't my child inherit as well? My sister-in-law's boyfriend held back his laughter. Sister-in-law, you are, after all, a graduate of a famous university. Know some laws. Legally, only the man's illegitimate children have the right to inherit, that is, I must raise my husband's mistress's child, but there is no mention of the woman's child at all. Morally, no matter how much of a jerk a man is and how many affairs he has outside, the child is still the blood of the family. Even if Wang Hui's family was originally a poor and shabby one. The situation suddenly changed. The Wang family was triumphant as if the success or failure had been decided. Several old shareholders who knew the Wang family's entrepreneurial history advised the Wang family to be lenient and leave 10% of the shares to me. Mother-in-law didn't understand shares, but she knew that shares could be exchanged for money and were good things. No way. She has to leave with nothing. All the shares belong to our family. I sneered, if you want me to leave with nothing, return my 188,000 yuan dowry first. It was given by my parents. It's mine. The 188,000 yuan is surely gone. Wang Hui used this 188,000 yuan as start-up capital for his business back then. Father-in-law scolded, once you enter our Wang family, your things are naturally ours. How can there be a reason for returning? Father-in-law regarded himself as having read the sages' books of the older generation. Unfortunately, he only read the filthy things. The ancients said that a woman's dowry should not be touched at all, and it should be inherited by her own children after her death. If she has no children, it should also be returned to her mother's family. Before I could speak, father-in-law added, back then, my family was poor, but we still gave 18,000 yuan betrothal gift. This money should be returned to us. More than that. Sister-in-law hasn't given birth all these years, and our relatives and friends have always laughed at our family. She should compensate us for our mental losses. Mother-in-law nodded repeatedly, looking at me with bright eyes, looking me up and down, estimating how much more money she could squeeze out of me. After this series of operations, even the old shareholders were shocked. They had seen shameless people before, but never those who actively threw away their dignity. Yao Yao has served your Wang family for 7 years anyway. Even if she has no merit, she has at least toiled. The mother-in-law pursed her lips, all right. It seems that our family has bullied her. As long as she returns the shares to the child, we will always give her a bite to eat. This bite to eat is probably even worse than dog food. I would rather starve to death than eat it. Of course, I will definitely not let myself starve to death. Fine, I'll give it. The shareholders shouted that Yao Yao couldn't do it. I waved my hand. Don't worry. They can't swallow it. 5. The Wang family was overjoyed and couldn't find their bearings. They hurried to prepare the contract, not noticing at all that the shareholders were taking out their mobile phones one after another. Dear brothers, if you trust me, you can sell your shares right now. Several shareholders and I started the business together through thick and thin. They can be said to be solid partners in the same trench. With the documents I attached, they almost didn't hesitate and chose to believe me. We don't want the shares either. The Wang family grinned so widely that their gums were all showing. What a wonderful thing. Their son's funeral was about to turn into a happy event. However, the shareholders wanted cash, and it had to be transferred immediately. The sister-in-law and her boyfriend calculated together and found that the on-book working capital was just enough. The father-in-law hesitated and didn't agree. He had heard his son say that the on-book working capital was for the next season's goods payment and couldn't be moved casually. The mother-in-law put her hands on her hips and cursed the father-in-law loudly. "You're so stupid. How many times did our son want to redeem all the shares but couldn't get them back? Now that there is such a good opportunity, you still want to let it go. Besides, this company originally belonged to our family. Those people were useful in the early days, but now they don't do any work and still want to get money for free at the end of the year." Soon, the sister-in-law's boyfriend, as a future big lawyer, drew up the contract and urged us to sign it quickly, for fear that we would go back on our word. I held the pen, unable to suppress the smile at the corners of my mouth. "Are you sure you will buy back all of our shares?" the mother-in-law shouted in a loud voice. "Sign quickly. How can one renege on such a thing?" I nodded. "Don't regret it later." After the contract was signed and the cash was transferred, the shareholders nodded to me. I took out my mobile phone and whispered a few words. The mother-in-law impatiently wanted to drive us away. She was so stingy that she didn't even want to give us food at her son's funeral banquet. "What's the hurry? We don't want to eat this anyway. The good show has just begun." The suppliers rushed into the meeting hall with a group of people, holding contracts in their hands and shouting to pay the goods payment quickly. The father-in-law cupped his hands in salute, thinking that he had the elegance of a businessman. "May I ask Mr. Sue, clearly it is the payment for the next season. It's only the beginning of the month today, and today is also my son's funeral. Why not talk about it later?" Mr. Sue waved his hand grandly. "What son or cat? Your Wong family has owed the payment for half a year. If I can't get the money today, I'll even overturn the coffin." The father-in-law's hands trembled with anger. The mother-in-law pushed him aside and went into battle herself. "What the hell? Aren't you just a delivery man? Our family looked up to you and let you supply goods. Now we don't want them anymore. Take your lousy stuff away by yourself." Mr. Sue sneered. "Are you being unreasonable? Just wait. I will make sure that no one in the whole area supplies goods to your family." The father-in-law was still relatively calm. He knew that Mr. Sue was not joking. If there were no goods, the Wong family would go bankrupt just from the breach of contract payments. "Oh, Brother Sue, be easy going. Forgive us for 2 days." The sweet, affected voice made everyone's skin crawl, especially her boyfriend. Poor him, he managed to hold it in. Mr. Sue, however, remained unmoved and said coldly, "It's not up to me." The father-in-law continued to ask questions, but Mr. Sue didn't answer. Instead, he led a group of people to walk quickly to me, bowed, and greeted me. "Boss Yao, good." The Wong family all stared wide-eyed. You are actually the boss of the Wong family's largest supplier." I pushed away the spittle-spraying mother-in-law and corrected them. "Now I'm the Wong family's biggest creditor. Either pay back the money or go bankrupt." 6. The mother-in-law wanted to renege. The share buying and the shareholders, of course, showed no courtesy. My father-in-law, having changed his overbearing look just now, pulled my reluctant mother-in-law to make peace. "Oh, it's like water from the flood has rushed into the Dragon King's temple. We are all one family. Just pay back the money slowly." My mother-in-law narrowed her slanting triangular eyes. "Pay back what? Since you have married into our Wong family, everything belongs to our family." Sometimes I really want to laugh. How can someone become a mother-in-law and act like an empress dowager? Narrow-minded and extremely shameless. I followed my father-in-law's words. "Fine, we are all one family. Then the house, car and cash under Wang Hui's name can be carefully calculated. The Wang family members looked at each other in dismay. They had long regarded these as their private property and had never thought of giving them to me. My lawyer with gold-rimmed glasses quickly took out the property details. Over the years, my dowry had long been used up by them, while Wang Hui's house, car and cash were all safely in his name. If he hadn't passed away so early, I'm afraid I wouldn't have known that he had saved up so many private funds. According to the inheritance law, my client and the child are both the first-in-line heirs and have the right to inherit. My in-laws and my sister-in-law have no right to speak and cannot lay their hands on the estate under Wang Hui's name. Naturally, they were dissatisfied, but my sister-in-law's boyfriend advised them to be content with what they had got. Anyway, the child could get half, which meant they could also get half. Since the senior lawyer had said so, they had no choice but to sign reluctantly. This battle could be regarded as a draw. My mother-in-law's slanting triangular eyes were almost popping out with anger. "You ill-fated woman. Why don't you cancel the payment contract yet? Debt repayment is only natural. Even brothers should settle accounts clearly. Besides, it still belongs to my parents, so you still have to pay back the money today." Fortunately, my parents had the foresight and deliberately left a backup plan, and it just came in handy today. My mother-in-law still wanted to continue to be overbearing, rolling and screaming on the ground. Oh, heavens! This ill-fated woman drove my son to his death, and now she is going to drive our whole family to death. I don't want to live anymore. I will go with my son today. I calmly picked my ears and signaled the lawyer to show the account flow. You two elders still have several properties. All of them were bought by Wang Hui with our money. I have calculated. It just offsets the debt. Wang Hui could use our money to buy mansions for his parents, but he never bought any small gifts for my parents. All along, he seemed to imply that my parents were rich and looked down on his things. But did the old people really lack these small gifts? What they wanted was the son-in-law's thoughtfulness and proof that their daughter was living well in her husband's family. So, isn't it reasonable for me to take back my private property? Then if I take over the company as well, it doesn't seem too much either. The Wang family members were still not reconciled and pulled my sister-in-law's boyfriend together to discuss. Unfortunately, he shook his head frequently. They could only offer the properties to offset the debt. At least in this way, they could keep the company. As long as the company didn't go bankrupt, there would be plenty of money to buy more in the future. I happily stepped forward to take over the properties. My mother-in-law clenched her teeth tightly. Every time I took a property document, it was like cutting a piece of flesh from her. My son, you have just passed away and your body is still warm. This ill-fated woman has already robbed us of our houses and cars. Oh, God. How miserable my life is. Several aunts, considering themselves just, sternly advised, "Yao Yao, you are too much. Wang Hui has just died. How can you rob the old people of their money for their old age support? You will be struck by lightning." I sneered. These aunts had often come to the Wang family to freeload in the past. My mother-in-law secretly disliked them very much but still had to maintain a superior look on the surface. And she was unwilling to spend her own money but always asked me to solve the problems. I had no choice but to use the money my parents gave me to subsidize them. Several aunts, you are kind and just and have done a lot of good deeds on weekdays. I will leave my in-laws to you for their old age support. I will go to the temple today to light a long burning lamp and wish you a long life. I'm sure you will not be struck by lightning. Several people stopped talking and all stepped back. When things don't happen to them, they can say nicer things than anyone else. But if it really happens to them, they will run away faster than anyone. The father-in-law pretended to be calm. Now he regretted it so much. He had long been planning with his son how to transfer property. He had placed several houses under his name. Unexpectedly, his son died so suddenly. Is it really God's punishment? I don't care whether God punishes or not. At least there is a punishment from the company coming soon right now. Oh, by the way, besides the payment for goods, the company also owes a large amount of debt. After all, I have been your daughter-in-law for 7 years. I have already calculated for you. It's almost bankrupt. So the shareholders nodded one after another to sell their shares. When the building is about to collapse, anyone who doesn't run away is a fool. This time, the father-in-law was completely unable to stay calm and covered his chest. What? What other debts are there? Since they were plotting to transfer the family property, of course I wouldn't be idle. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Either we don't take action, or we play a big game when we do. Wang Hui had always wanted to go public, but the company's scale was limited. As a virtuous wife, I surely had to share the burden. Fortunately, my girlfriends had connections and funds. Just after they knew my story, they couldn't wait to skin Wang Hui alive. So, without knowing it, Wang Hui signed a large-scale financing deal. He thought he could change his wife, hold his son and ring the bell for going public. He didn't expect to ring his own death knell instead. My girlfriends, dressed in bright colors, showed up in time with a group of big-built bodyguards. Their fingernails were dyed bright red, and they pretended to pick up incense sticks to worship. Oh, God, open your eyes. Take this scumbag away. Tomorrow we will burn the first incense for you. When the mother-in-law saw Red at her son's funeral, she immediately entered the fighting cock mode, glaring, with her hands on her hips and her mouth pouted like a toilet seat cover. What shameless bitches, running wild on my head. Let me tear your mouths apart. My girlfriends pretended to be frightened. Oh, what a fierce old hag. My sister must have been bullied a lot usually. They waved their hands to let the big-built bodyguard step forward. Today, let you and all the fierce old hags here see what the consequence is for being disrespectful to the old. The mother-in-law was thrown to the ground, and her hands and feet were all pinned down. The father-in-law shouted that what they were doing was a crime. My girlfriends laughed. The bodyguard team was professional. They definitely avoided the vital parts. It was just a black and blue face, not even a minor injury. I also laughed. Finally, I let out a sigh of relief. Normally, although she didn't hit me, the combined PUA from her and Wang Hui was full of harm. A barren old hen. Eating, drinking, defecating and urinating at home, doing nothing. What's the use of a woman reading books? She can't even give birth to a child after reading so many books. Every time after she said these things, she had to spit out a thick phlegm as if she could make my life as dirty as hers in this way. I wanted to spit like her, but unfortunately I could never do it. People should grow towards the sun. How could they be willing to degenerate? Seeing that the situation was hopeless, the father-in-law could only let my girlfriends take the company away for liquidation. The sister-in-law stared at me with red-eyed fury and shouted at me, "I'm still the legal person. Just wait. One day I will take the company back." Oh, if she hadn't spoken, I would have almost forgotten that there was still a naive girl in the Wang family waiting for me to deal with. She took advantage of my kindness and stabbed me in the back. Now let's settle all the scores together. 8. The Wang family has a serious patriarchal ideology. During the strict crackdown in those years, the Wang family still wanted to have another son. They were fined a lot for this. Unfortunately, a daughter was born, so the sister-in-law was scolded and beaten a lot at home. When I married into their family, I felt sorry for her situation and often spoke for her and fought for her rights. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been so stupid as to give up my shares and the position of legal person. Unfortunately, the backstabbing from the Wong family hurt her the most. She had spread many rumors among relatives and friends, saying that I bullied others by flaunting my powerful connections, that I always bullied my in-laws and her, and that her brother was extremely unlucky to marry me. She, relying on her parents having some money and having studied for a few days, looks down on our family. Our whole family are her nannies. So she instigated Wang Hui to keep a mistress outside and personally brought her illegitimate child to fight for the family property. I had confronted her, asking why she treated me like this. Because I hate you. You have such a good family background, such good parents, and such good knowledge. Everything about you is better than mine. Why? If you are brought down, you will surely look uglier than me. I should not be so naive. It's time to let go of the impulse to help others and respect fate. The Wong family's funeral was grand. Prominent figures and the media all came. There were 2 large projection screens at the venue. I signaled my subordinates to turn on the projection screens. The 2 large projection screens lit up simultaneously. Inside were one Wong family freight truck after another. The Wong family logo was shown in close-up. They were neatly arranged and looked very imposing. The Wong family members' eyes lit up at first and then darkened. Their hatred for me was like adding fuel to the fire. But they soon realized that the following scenes were wrong. The trucks stopped at a remote place. A group of people dodged their eyes and looked around repeatedly, fearing being discovered. The video sound was low, but the conversation could be heard clearly. Brother, this batch of goods is from Country J. It's radioactive. What are you afraid of? The Wong enterprise is big. There's nothing it can't handle. Soon the trucks pulled the goods away and then sent them into the Wong group. They were pasted with the Wong logo and transported to various supermarkets, schools, and even hospitals. The scene was dead silent. The sister-in-law reacted the fastest and shouted to turn it off. The inquisitive reporters immediately smelled the hot topic and swarmed forward, aiming their long guns and short cannons at the in-laws. Is it true? Your company actually does something against discipline and the law. Before the father-in-law could speak, I cut in, my in-laws are old. They surely don't know. It must be the people below. He nodded repeatedly and looked at me more warily. How could I be so kind as to speak for them? Of course, I'm not that kind. I will just add fuel to the fire. The Wong family was directing people to investigate quickly. I signaled to them that all the evidence was in my hands and not to waste their efforts. Soon, all self-media and official websites across the network received a video. Inside was a close-up of the father-in-law alone. He was flushed with drink at the wine table, with young girls on his left and right. He joked about how old they were, and the two said coquettishly, "Just turned 18. After the laughter, someone was worried. The father-in-law laughed heartily. His subordinates tactfully lit cigarettes and poured wine. He slowly opened his mouth like a superior person. Fortune favors the bold. My son is too timid. To do big things, I have to step in. Someone was not reassured. Won't it kill people? His eyes were cold. The poor don't have much to lose. Their only value is to be the stepping stones for the rich. Before the video finished playing, the whole network was in an uproar. Some truths should not be spoken by the beneficiaries. Beat him to death. Beat the Wongs to death. No one knew who started it. Nor did anyone know where the Wang's security guards had gone. Nor did anyone know that the so-called poor people in the father-in-law's eyes could be so bold. They surrounded the funeral venue. The order at the scene was in chaos. The father-in-law was trapped in the center of the maelstrom. He thought hard and finally shouted, "Look for my daughter. She is the legal person. She signed all the papers." Afraid that everyone couldn't find his daughter, he pushed his daughter out with all his strength. The sister-in-law fell to the ground and looked at him in disbelief. "When we were young, you were partial to my brother. Now that my brother is dead, you still look down on me as a daughter. Are you still going to make me the scapegoat at the end?" She sounded sad, but no one cared. Her misfortunes were not the reasons for the Wang family's violations of discipline and the law. Soon, the sister-in-law was taken away. This time, money couldn't solve the problem. Her only hope was that her boyfriend could save her. After all, he loved her. She almost went mad and roared at me, "He will come to save me. You don't have a lover, but I do. I still win." Well, love is very beautiful, but both the Wang siblings are calculating. Seeing that her son and daughter were in trouble, the mother-in-law finally went crazy. 10. She is the bitch, unchaste, having an illegitimate child outside. You should cyber-bully her and scold her to death. Today, this farce is being watched all over the internet. All of a sudden, public opinion began to shift. All were photos of me being unchaste and raising an illegitimate child outside. I became the target of being spat on all over the internet, and it was even hotter than the Wang's illegal and evil deeds. There were also a few sober netizens who commented, "It's not that the female lead can't give birth, but that the male lead has affairs outside. How could there be an illegitimate child?" Following the above, no matter what the reason is, if a man has an affair and has a child during marriage, he is a scumbag. But more people, led by the paid posters, scolded me for being shameless, and the Wangs became the victims instead. I sneered. Why can only men have illegitimate children? 11. Seeing the shift in public opinion, the in-laws became arrogant again. The mother-in-law pointed at my nose and scolded, "Son of a bitch, shameless thing." I had been bullied by their family for 7 years, and she still wanted to scold my mother. I casually picked up a water cup and splashed it on her face. "Pa, old and damned thing. Your mouth stinks to death. An old beast gives birth to a beast, and the beast gives birth to a small beast. No, it can't give birth." The mother-in-law jumped up and down. It was okay to scold her, but it was not okay to scold her precious son and grandson. And what did "can't give birth" mean? Of course it means literally. You are the one who spreads rumors. My precious grandson is of course the root of the Wang family. It's you who can't give birth. Just then, our lawyer presented the adoption certificate. My child was adopted, so there was no affair during marriage. The child had no blood relationship with me. The mother-in-law immediately became haughty. So she was really a hen that couldn't lay eggs. No matter how powerful a woman's career is, if she can't give birth to a baby, she is rubbish. I really couldn't refute this point. After all, having a baby is not a one-person thing. If the man is not okay, everything is in vain. The mother-in-law finally understood the literal meaning just now. She stared wide-eyed and shouted that it was impossible. Her precious grandson looked so much like her son. Just then, our lawyer presented Wang Hui's azoospermia diagnosis certificate. The literal meaning was very straightforward. He had no sperm and would never be able to have children in his life. The mother-in-law was astonished. But weren't you doing in vitro fertilization? Back then, for the sake of face, Wang Hui deliberately deceived me into doing in vitro fertilization. The doctor said how could it be done without sperm, but he insisted that I go through the process of ovulation induction and egg retrieval because he wanted to save his reputation. At this moment, my anger grew even greater. So it turned out that his family also knew that I was doing in vitro fertilization. But Wang Hui told them that I was the one with problems and could only do in vitro fertilization. So when I was in great pain back then, they deliberately didn't offer a helping hand. Because they didn't care at all. The long-haired girl in black was about to give birth. What did it matter whether I was okay or not? Now, it's time for me to settle the score. On the day when Wang Hui had an accident, he was in a hurry to meet the long-haired girl in black and didn't notice at all that there was an adoption certificate in the share contract. So, Wang Hui's so-called illegitimate child was not his child, but the child I adopted was our child and could inherit the shares. Since the child was not Wang Hui's, then half of the property that had just been transferred from under Wang Hui's name had to be returned to me. The father-in-law slumped to the ground. The company was gone, the property under his name was gone, and now half of the property under his son's name was also gone. He shouted, "All gone." 12. The father-in-law completely fainted. Seeing this, the mother-in-law lay on him and cried loudly, "Old man, don't leave me behind." As a result, she pushed too hard and the fecal bag for the colostomy burst open. Now there was a stench everywhere. Relatives and friends retreated as if fleeing. For the last journey of Wang Hui's life, no one saw him off, and he stank even after death. My sister-in-law's boyfriend was very tough. He didn't run away and confronted me. Anyway, I have to support the two elderly people. I nodded and planned to give 1 million yuan in alimony to completely cut off the relationship. Of course, this 1 million yuan is not given for free. The company has just gone bankrupt and I need to pick it up again. Image is very important. My sister-in-law's boyfriend is now in charge of the Wang family. He accepted 1 million yuan on their behalf at the notary office and signed the severance of relations letter. Before leaving, he said to me viciously, "I will definitely take good care of the two old people and won't let you have your way." I smiled. "I'm just afraid that you won't take good care of them." Sure enough, he found the best sanatorium in the country. The two old people moved in. It costs 100,000 yuan per month. Moreover, my father-in-law has just recovered from a serious illness and has hemiplegia all over his body, requiring extra care. But he didn't care at all. With a big wave of his hand, he hired several special-level nurses. The two old people were deeply grateful to him. There are still good people in this world. When my sister-in-law is released from prison, they will hold a wedding for them. My sister-in-law's boyfriend was shocked and doubled his spending, only choosing the expensive ones. Soon the 1 million yuan was almost used up and he still owed 100,000 yuan in debt. The sanatorium urged my in-laws to pay the bill, but they had no money. They could only shout for my sister-in-law's boyfriend, but he was nowhere to be seen. Even if they called the police were in a difficult position. The 1 million yuan was indeed all spent on my in-laws. It was a favor for my sister-in-law's boyfriend to take care of them, and it was normal not to take care of them. The sanatorium is not a charity either. Seeing that the two really couldn't pay, they could only politely ask them to leave. At the same time, they applied to the court to list the two as debtors who break their word. Their names will be removed when they pay back the money. This life is even more miserable than when they were down and out. 13. When I saw my mother-in-law again, she was picking up garbage to exchange for money. I kindly reminded her that she could only use cash and not transfer money through the bank account, otherwise the bank would confiscate the money of debtors who break their word. My mother-in-law looked at me coldly and for the first time did not speak ill of me. It was all a trap you designed. What do you want to do to me? So she could be afraid too. Back then, when she bullied others in the Wong family, she had a hideous face and was never soft-hearted towards me. On a very cold winter day, she made me wash clothes outdoors, saying that when she was a daughter-in-law, she had also been through this. Of course my son's clothes should be hand-washed. Machine-washed clothes are stiff. Anyway, you don't work and don't take care of the children. What's wrong with washing clothes? You're really a delicate princess. At that time, I still had expectations for Wang Hui. For the sake of family harmony, I endured it. But later, when my father was ill in bed, my mother-in-law didn't allow me to take care of him. You're stupid from studying. You are already a member of our family. Why do you always run back to your mother's home? Who will take care of me and your father-in-law? Hurry up and go cook. She has never enjoyed family warmth or achieved anything in her life. So she was jealous of my family and my education level and wanted to torture me into her shape, being sarcastic and mean, always feeling that others owed her. Now she knows she was wrong. It's not wrong to torture me, but wrong not to have completely broken me. This time it was my turn not to be soft-hearted and return her to her original life. My father-in-law is still hemiplegic. The cost and energy of taking care of him are overwhelming her. She either takes care of him until she dies or gives up on him. Obviously, she will choose the latter, give up her sick husband, and become a vicious woman in the eyes of relatives and friends who doesn't care about others' lives, truly shameless. This good news can only be shared with my sister-in-law in the Wong family. According to the prison guard, she keeps asking every day whether her boyfriend has come to rescue her. Originally, she didn't want to see me. But when I said that I would tell her the good news about her boyfriend, she came out happily. I took out a box of beautifully packaged wedding candies with an invitation card inside. It was for the young boyfriend and a girl with long black straight hair. Last Saturday was an auspicious day. They held their wedding banquet and the full moon banquet for their baby together. It was very lively. I sent a big red envelope on behalf of your family. She roared furiously, "Impossible, this is impossible." Of course it was true. The girl with long black straight hair and her young boyfriend were childhood sweethearts, but she was sexually harassed by Wang Hui under the unspoken rule. He even threatened her with her mother's medical treatment expenses, and she was forced to become a mistress. When she came to me crying back then, I also shed tears. Why is it like this? I've studied so hard and so well. How did I become a mistress? I don't want this. What should I do with my boyfriend's child in my belly? Sister Yao Yao, please save me. Save me and him. I promised her, and the three of us planned this good show together. So, sister-in-law, there are no free benefits in the world, and you won't be given an excellent boyfriend for nothing either. Look at it this way. It seems that you haven't even won over me in terms of love. The whole family of the scumbag wanted to besiege me. They planned to lure me from the very beginning, make me fall into their trap, and gradually nibble away at my money, my youth, and my bottom line as a person. Unfortunately, they were wrong. People living in the shadows will not understand those growing towards the sun. We can be kind, but not to them. On the day I woke up, I besieged them. Give back what belongs to me, and give back what I gave as well. The whole family, all of them, not a single one left. Ah, what a hearty revenge!